If you're a founder-led B2B company stuck around 5 million in revenue, you've probably tried everything to scale your marketing, whether it's agencies, ads, different tools, and you still feel like growth is unpredictable. The problem isn't your tactics, it's your structure. Today, you'll learn the real reason why your marketing keeps stalling, what most founders misunderstand about pipeline scale, and how to finally build a system that drives consistent, high-quality revenue. So I want to start with the why, why your marketing isn't built to scale. And you're getting to 2 million, you get to that $2.5 million threshold here, and everything you're doing is working. You're closing deals, the referrals are coming in, you're posting on LinkedIn when you remember, you're showing up at the trade show. Somehow pipeline just keeps moving and moving. And then you hit that wall. And it's not because you're doing anything wrong, but it's because the stuff that got you here isn't designed to get you to that next level. You're at 2 million, you're making maybe 5 big marketing decisions a week. Which conference should we sponsor? Should we tweak this message? What's our next campaign? And then at 5 million, like that, the number is getting closer to 50. You got paid media, you got your content calendar, you got outbound sequences, you got partners, you got different events, and you got the positioning. Every single one of those decisions is now waiting on you. It's not like you're getting dumber or you're losing your ability to make the decisions here. There's just more than decisions than just one person can process while running the rest of the company. And here's the thing, like strategy lives in your head, right? I know, but I see it every time. Why certain messaging works because that's the sales call that you had 3 years ago that really hit. Which segments are a waste of time because of the deal that fell apart during COVID. But none of this is documented. So when you try to hand that marketing off to someone else, that other agency, you start thinking like, oh, they're just not strategic enough. They don't get it. And the real problem is that the strategy itself is the only secret that you know. So let me show you what I mean here. So what works at 2 million doesn't work at 5. At 2, the founder, you can do anything. You can do it all. Referrals can carry the load, and you can post when you remember. You don't need to have that set content schedule. It's easy to react to whatever's coming in, and that just all breaks when you're trying to scale. You become that bottleneck. Your pipeline starts getting unpredictable, and the team just they can't execute what's not being documented. So this stat really just hit the nail on the head for me. 60% of companies between 3 and 10 million never build a repeatable go-to-market system. They just keep doing the early stage tactics at scale where those tactics just don't work anymore. Think about that. 6 out of 10 companies will never build a repeatable go-to-market system. Blew my mind. And what you're probably getting wrong here, I'm not saying this to harp on a lot of the issues that are happening, but whenever I see like the outsourcing happening too early, that's when that problems are going to start. I see it all the time that a founder, they go to hire an agency, and the agency just produces just generic slop. Nothing's converting, and the easiest place for the founder to go is just to blame that agency. But the most of the time, the agency's not the problem. The problem is you just can't outsource your voice before you've defined it. So anyone can just Google or ask ChatGPT, like, what are the 5 top implementation headaches? And then use that to write a generic LinkedIn post. It's just noise. And then the social is just getting more and more noisy with that generic slop that everyone can just regurgitate. Think about this. Like, what do you have that no one else has? Not one other founder in your industry. And it's your stories, your personal anecdotes, your client conversations, the things you're having outside of LinkedIn. It's that objection that you overcame last Thursday, or the implementation that almost went sideways, but you saved it. People buy from people, and especially in B2B, where the sales cycle is so long, the stakes are high. People don't want to make a multi-million-dollar mistake. And so, a great couple examples here. And, look at Adam Robinson from our B2B, prolific on LinkedIn, building in public. He's running a two multi-million-dollar companies, but he's still doing LinkedIn videos. He's still jumping on podcasts. But here's what I imagine. He's not writing every single LinkedIn post you're reading from scratch. He can record a long form video and that has a script that's in his voice, his stories, his background, some things that these anecdotes that no one else has. But then he or maybe probably his team, they can figure out how to repurpose this on LinkedIn, different clips on YouTube Shorts, tweets, other clips on different social PDFs, the newsletter he sends out. He uses AI to help him distribute, but the source material is him. It's his take, his experiences, his voice. Then he repurposes it and spreads it across the relevant channels that his audience is on. That's the difference. You don't need to write every post one by one. And one of the biggest issues I hear with founders we're working with, like they don't want to write every post. They're busy. I get it. But you can create once, take some time and write in your voice or speak in your voice on a video or host a webinar or some kind of training. And then you can figure out how to distribute that everywhere that's relevant. And I used to work in politics, so authenticity is everything to me. I think it's the most important thing that whether it's a candidate or a founder, they need to have. And it comes through, especially today. And whether you love him or hate him, Donald Trump posts in his own voice on social media almost daily, several times daily, right? You know exactly what he's thinking. You might hate it, it might drive you wild, and you might love it, and you might be waving a flag. But it's him, that that's what his voice, and that's what he's saying, and that's what he thinks. That's the mindset I would carry as a founder. You need to sound like you, not some generic business owner. And you can't fake it. It's just the bottom line. Today, in today's world, you just can't fake real. And no matter how busy you think you are, not when you're trying to build trust with buyers who've been burned before or are skeptical of every vendor that shows up in their inbox, or the team that just can't afford to make another multi-million-dollar mistake here. Your voice needs to be heard, and your anecdotes, they can be spoken, they can be written, they can be recorded on a podcast. You need to be the one doing the webinars. There's just the videos or that long form podcast. Like there's just I don't think there's any way around it here, especially in 2026. At least until you've documented enough that someone else can kind of carry things forward. And when you get a little bit bigger, now is the time to really build that moat. And I've done a video about this before. If you search on YouTube, you'll find it. We talked a lot about this. And the next step where I see a lot of mistakes happening is, I group these two together. It's either not having the right team or you're just trying to do it all. And like that, the two failure modes. The first mode is you hire that junior marketer. You expect them to build a system from scratch. And what happens? Most of the time they just can't do it. And they don't have the experience. They don't know what good looks like. They need someone to show them. And it's not because they don't know marketing or they're not good at content. Like you just in today's busy crowded space, the authenticity stands out, and having some junior person just be you and just post for you and do some social selling for you, or write great posts on like a comment, or send out DMs that you never even read before. It just sticks out. You know when you know. And if you're watching this video, you probably have been getting these or seeing these from your peers every day, and you're calling it out that this is BS or just fake. And then why would you want to do something just a tiny bit better there? The second mode here is trying to do it all. You try to do it all yourself because it's kind of like the complete flip from what we were just saying. No one understands a business like you, and that's true. But you also can't scale yourself. And the answer isn't hiring a full-time VP of marketing, paying them $300,000 a year. Even at $5 million, you probably can't afford that. And even if you could, you're going to struggle to find that top-tier talent for your company your size. So what's the answer? And where I would say is the answer is bringing in people who've done it before. If you find that fractional support, people that can complement your team, your internal team, enhance what you're already doing. So you can kind of find that happy middle. You're able to drive your expertise, and then you can get the experience of the marketing or the go to market, whether you're doing ABM or some content, and you get that experience without the full-time overhead. And that's what we do here at Colony Spark. We're not replacing your team, and we work best. And I think all the best agencies would say this, like they work with your team. They try to fill the gaps between where you are and where you need to be. And the final mistake that I want to just discuss today is, when I hear things like we're on LinkedIn because that's the B2B social media. We're a B2B company. It's on LinkedIn. So this is just your run-of-the-mill spray and pray type of deal instead of building a system. You hear it, we're active where our competitors are. All right, that's cool. But how are you different? And you could be saying, but we tried ads, that they didn't work. We tried outbound. We hired a team and they sent thousands of emails. That didn't work. We tried content. That didn't work. Okay, cool. Did you have any system behind that? That's the first thing. If you talk to me, that's the first thing I'll ask you. Or did you just throw that stuff on the wall and hope that it's stuck? I'll let you in on a little secret. And most of the companies that you're probably thinking are your competitors are probably doing the same thing that you just thought of. So just the blind leading the blind here, real opportunity to step it up. So by stepping it up, it's just the one main thing you can do is know your ICP. At 2 million, you probably could sell to whoever wanted to buy. You get a deal come in, it's hard to say no. You need to keep the lights on. But at 5 million, you need to know exactly who your best customers are. What makes them buy? What makes them stay? And what makes them want to refer you to their colleagues? So, and without that clarity, you're just talking to everyone and you're just doing whatever you can. Your marketing feels more, it's like a slot machine instead of a system. And, those random tactics, like they don't compound. Systems, that's what compounds here. And if you need a structure that matches that sales cycle, your buyer type and the way your best customers actually make decisions. You've heard it before. If you're speaking to everyone, you're speaking to no one. And I don't want to say, just do a video about here's all the problems that you're doing. It's easy to rip on everything that people are doing wrong and play Monday morning quarterback. So I just want to go over a couple things that I think it actually works and how you can fix this and stand out from your competitors. You might not want to hear it. It's starting manual. You got to get in the trenches. You can't just hire someone or use ChatGPT to write. Before you automate everything, you need to understand what's actually working. Before you do socials, you try to outsource some social selling, you should start commenting. You should see what people are talking about. You should know who your thought leaders are in your industry, what they care about. Easy way, just one piece you can do here. Just record your sales calls. You can listen to them back with your team, or analyze them in Claude. Upload the transcript. If you have Google Workspace, you have access to Gemini, transcribes your calls. If you have any number of tools that transcribe your calls or meeting assistants, you want to analyze these in a more objective way. It's not to judge yourself. It's really to understand the patterns. What objections keep coming up? What questions does every prospect ask? How can you understand those or address those prospects better? Or how can you formulate questions better to get bring that customer to the decision you want them to get to? Same with the content here. If you do the content first yourself, it's not because you just have to keep doing it forever, but it's because you need to capture your voice, your stories, your perspective before someone else can scale it. And you can, I don't want to hit on her, say don't use ChatGPT or Claude. I want you to use that to get insights, not to replace you. AI can flag patterns or identify real coaching opportunities for your team. And if you can build an agent using some MCPs, and you could really analyze your call, you can send it into Slack, you can email your team, and you can really set up a real feedback loop that helps everyone improve. And it becomes more objective for everyone, so it doesn't really feel like it's someone on the team that's like giving them feedback or criticizing them. It's an objective AI that can help you. And same thing with content. You can start using that AI to start understanding like what's working. How can they formulate your longer riff or your story into a more LinkedIn appropriate post or something that a PDF that would play well on LinkedIn or in a newsletter. So people can smell just random, ChatGPT content from anywhere. It takes 2 seconds. Once you kind of get into this, more manual process, getting in the trenches, then you can build the structure. Then you can document the process so others can learn how to do it. You bring the people on the calls with you, or, not just to like follow a script that you write like that. That's never going to work. And it just sounds so machine driven, but they need to hear how people speak, how you handle the objections, what are their mannerisms, if you're on a video call, and how do you kind of move that conversation forward so they can do it in their own voice. You need to create the feedback loop, whether you're using Slack or, weekly syncs. Everyone on your team should be growing week over week from the time that they've spent with customers, with leads, on social, in the DMs, all of this. You should be building a version of yourself that they can scale, or your team can scale. Some people, you call it a digital twin, and all the data, all the insights, the patterns you have accumulated over the years, and that you've been doing this, you structure so now your team can tap into it. But it doesn't happen overnight. One of the most valuable agents you can build right now, and everyone's asking, how to use AI, and it's building a coach that helps you and your team improve on every call, and that's your sales calls, and that's your customer, your account calls too. You need to be, just refining and finding those gaps, seeing there may be different things that it can judge you on every call, and you can start learning from that, improving, and then you can start, gaming that in with your team. So a real example here, and that I wanted to share is, we worked recently with a Acumatica consulting firm, and they were about at this 2.5 million in revenue, the same kind of revenue I've been talking about in this whole video. And the founder was just great. He understood the landscape, this last year, and he was great at what he did. He knew the product in and out. He knew Acumatica. He knew like the objections and things that why people are hesitant to invest in the product and in the new ERP. So, he kind of knew like what their marketing looked like, and it was he wanted to post on LinkedIn. He wanted to do a lot of things, but it really as most companies at this size, the marketing really just looked more like he would post maybe once a week when he remembered. They would show up to their couple trade shows every year, and most of the clients really started coming from or were coming from their referrals and the deals that they would chase after those shows. So when we dug into HubSpot, the story was pretty typical. The revenue was unpredictable. Some quarters looked amazing. Some quarters was like, down. You're kind of seeing these up and down. Some quarters were just, didn't close anything. Then they tried to hire an agency. So they were, running some LinkedIn ads, and the agency produced some generic content, and nothing really stuck. Wasn't driving any more conversations or engagement. And, it's just, it wasn't because of the lack of trying. Like the activity was there, but the agency didn't really understand the buyers, and the content could have been written for any other ERP consultant on the planet, because the founder said he didn't have the time. And here's what changed. Here's how we tried to make a big impact early. So instead of trying to scale something that didn't exist, we start with the founder. We got him to do recording 15-minute brain dumps after his client and sales calls. What went wrong, what they fixed, what challenges they were talking about, or some new issue that appeared, what the client didn't understand going in. And we turn those into LinkedIn posts, case studies, videos, snippets. We would hop on, instead of having the founder say he doesn't have time to write posts, we were able to schedule regular video calls and be able to record his voice asking questions, taking some of the input we were hearing from the calls that were, the transcripts we've had and analysis we were able to do to get some real anecdotes, real stories, and dig in deep onto some things. This takes 30, 60 minutes. Maybe you could think of maybe 1 to 2 hours a month to get a lot of insights. You're documenting the sales conversations, what objections are coming up, what questions did every prospect ask, and then suddenly like you're able to like create a story that only he could tell. It's not like the generic 5 things you didn't know about Acumatica, or 5 workflows to care about, or they talk about real situations, the real stakes that mattered. It built trust, and then we kind of built that playbook from his actual calls. Not just some template that we worked on with other clients. We took what his actual data is, what he's actually great at, and what his clients are having trouble with, and what the transformation that everyone's looking to have. How can we position this consultant more as a partner rather than just a random vendor that everyone else positions themselves as? And then we identified a wedge service, a specific migration assessment that could be a door opener rather than just like selling the full implementations cold. Within 6 months, now he had a repeatable system. The team had a more of a playbook, and the founder was still using his voice, but now his insights were documented. His content had a cadence. We're getting things going, and then things start compounding. So not only is engagement up, there's more conversations happening. Now his team members can learn what he's doing, and now you're getting more than just the thought leadership from one founder. Now you're multiplying this from other people on the team who want to build out their own thought leadership and brand, that they can start creating content. They want to start doing these calls and videos and making sure that they're improving, because let's be honest, everyone is a little selfish. If you're working on a team and you're probably gonna leave that company soon. So why don't you want to start building out your expertise? And I would continue working with everyone on that team to kind of help amplify the brand and the trust. So not only the founder is leading by example, but now the rest of the team is joining him, and they're not just following some generic prompts. So if the shift from chasing leads to building a system that matches your sales cycle and buyer type makes sense, you're already thinking in the right direction. The next step is having the right strategic leadership to guide that system. That's where we come in. At Colony Spark, we act as your fractional CMO, bringing full funnel strategy, account-based marketing, and a clear focus on pipeline quality over that vanity metrics. If you're ready to build something that actually scales, book a free strategy call using the link in the description. Because I'm calling this segment more like a Monday morning action plan. So workshopping that. Let me know what you think in the comments. I want to give you some things that you can just do. You're watching this video. Maybe it's Friday night. You're trying to figure out how you're going to improve next week. You want to bring your team to the next level. Here's the 4 things I would say you can just start doing on Monday morning. Here's your action plan. Number 1, you can listen to the last 3 sales calls you had. Build an agent in Claude, preferably using Claude code to attach to like more of a bigger master agent orchestration. Use that to kind of understand the patterns, judge, kind of give you some feedback. Understand what objections keep coming up, understanding all the things that are kind of happening in your calls, how you can, and see how you can improve. But see if there's objections, maybe there's hesitations, maybe there's some kind of seasonal issue or something in the industry happening that kind of keeps popping up, and use that data. Then I would record 5 to 10 minute voice memo about a recent client win or a problem you solved with a customer. Just talk through what happened. And it doesn't have to be some like polished version of you. You're not putting it on a podcast. And I would talk through what happened. what did you do, why it mattered, talk through the back and forth you had with the customer, maybe some of the challenges you had, or, you almost gave up, but you figured it out. Like, talk through it and get deep. Go into like the intricacies of what happened. Now that 10-minute riff story, that's your next piece of content. And you take that content, you upload the transcript, use your voice to create, this is where you can use AI. You can take this, structure it into a blog post. You can do some keyword research there. You can understand what the LLMs are asking, so you can structure your blog post correctly using FAQs, right? Making sure you're adding the right keywords in there, typical SEO stuff. Boom, you have your blog post. And make sure you're adding some like real thought or authority type of content, or pieces like real numbers, real challenges, things that if AI or individuals reading it stands out. It's not generic, and it shows your expertise. Now you have this longer blog post, and you can probably have a couple different pieces in there. I would turn each of those blog posts into up to 3 to 5 different LinkedIn posts. And you can do LinkedIn posts, and you can take the LinkedIn post. One can be in a more contrarian take. One can be in a more prediction kind of thing, story. You can really just reformulate the story into different types of tones and pieces of content. One could be more optimistic, one could be pessimistic. Just think through that. And this is another place where AI can really hone in your voice and structure the posts. So you can say the same thing in different ways. And you can make sure you have a great hook right up front. One other place you can do is you can probably, if you're telling a story, probably has different pieces, you can create a PDF from different slides. One of those, you can upload that PDF to your LinkedIn. You can add it to a newsletter. That story you told is your next newsletter with a link to download the PDF with a little bit more information. I just gave you, 10 pieces of content here, and that could take you all but an hour. Now you kind of get in this rhythm. Your Monday morning is just flowing, coffee's flowing. I would then take a look at your calendar for the next 30 days. Where are you traveling? Is there an opportunity to add a small networking dinner with like 3 to 5 prospects or clients in that city? Preferably both. Bring in a client, meet with other prospects, immediate social proof there, or kind of opportunities. And these are the unscalable moments that really build relationships. Stop just looking online. Stop looking at the DMs or cold email. Start looking at how can I meet and, not to sell, just to bring a couple people out to dinner to talk about industry challenges or Acumatica opportunities or NetSuite, or whatever you want to make the dinner about. And just be seen as a facilitator and really build those relationships. And this may not turn into a client overnight, but doing this over and over and staying in touch, being able to build out your network, it's going to turn into a real lucrative opportunity over time. And the fourth and final piece I would mention today is just review your last quarter of marketing activity. Understand what actually drove demand and revenue and what was just noise. And so it's going to be a little difficult here. This is going to take you're not going to get this done on Monday, but you can start. I would start understanding, you can see where probably where the last click was, or maybe the first and last click, but start understanding what happens in the middle of, I saw your company and then I actually decided to call you or answer an email or reach out to you on LinkedIn. What are those pieces in between? And that's where most companies are failing today. They are turning off things that actually work. And I'm talking about, could be LinkedIn ads that aren't getting, you stop thinking about LinkedIn ads as a way to, you get 5 clicks and you get 1 client. Start thinking about the impressions and reach and over time. Look, maybe in January you started reaching a company and then they didn't even mention you or talk to you until September. What was actually happening in between that? And this is where you stand out from your competitors. You got to interview your customers. Understand what were they seeing? Maybe it was a podcast you jumped on. Maybe it was that event you set up. Maybe it was those LinkedIn ads and your thought leadership content that they never even liked or commented on, but they were seeing because you were connected with them. Understanding this just will change your next quarter, and you can just scale from beyond that. If you ever have questions, always available, and just feel free to reach out to me. Go to colonyspark.com. Once you pass the $2 million mark, growth doesn't stall because you're not trying. It stalls because what you're trying isn't built to scale. If you're stuck in the referral loop, juggling sales yourself, or skeptical after a bad marketing experience, the fix isn't another tactic. It's structure. When strategy, sales cycle, and messaging finally align, the predictable growth begins to follow. To keep building in the right direction, watch the next video on YouTube. It's tailored to where you are now.